Hey guys! Today we'll be covering a 2020 romance series called Single and Ready to Mingle. The movie revolves around childhood best friends named Yeon, Seo, and Bong. They have studied in an all-girls school all their life and haven't had many interactions with the opposite sex. They've lived a carefree life in an all-girls environment, but there are some side effects to not having any guys around. Whenever a boy approaches them, the girls would assume that they are trying to hit on them. Other times, they would act super shy and pathetic. Eventually, they start college at Seohan Women's University. During a night out with their friend Kim Suji and others, Seo suggests moving into a co-ed boarding house, but Ju-yi swiftly shuts down the idea. Shortly afterwards, Seo has to leave to run some errands. Later, a group of Suji's male friends join the girls at their table, much to Ju-yi's dismay. Ju-yi is surprised to see her friend so comfortable around guys. Meanwhile, when one of the boys offers to refill Ju-yi's drink, she starts shivering and sticks her glass in his face. To cope with the situation, an embarrassed Ju-yi gulps down drink after drink. Drunk out of her mind, she starts getting close to a guy. The next day, when she comes back to her senses, she realizes that she was flirting up a storm with a guy named Woo Sang-bong. Woo texts her and invites her to his coffee shop. A flashback then reveals that at night, when she told Woo that she was looking for a boarding house, he took her to his shared house above the coffee shop, and while drunk, she signed the lease for a year. Back to the present, Ju-yi doesn't remember signing the contract and decides to confront Woo about it. She then heads to the coffee shop and tells him that they should forget about last night. Refusing to let a paying tenant go, Woo forces her to have a look at his property once more, and to frighten Ju-yi, pushes him off a flight of stairs. As a result, Woo breaks his arm, but the two eventually clear the confusion. When Ju-yi still insists on breaking her contract, Woo asks her to cover his hefty hospital bill. Hearing this, Ju-yi immediately changes her tune and agrees to obey her contract. Moreover, she also agrees to work at Woo's coffee shop until he recovers. Later, she calls Seo, and Woo introduces them to his friend Kang Jun-woo, who helps him run his shop. They also learn about the third roommate named Hoon, who is currently working on a film. Seo is instantly smitten by Jun-woo's looks. However, Jun-woo is a tidy guy and likes to keep things organized, so he quickly starts to dislike Seo because of her untidy ways. Despite this, Woo forbids him from saying anything mean to her because he doesn't want to scare the girls away. Left with no choice, Jun-woo offers to do the chores for Seo. Meanwhile, Ju-yi can't bring herself to look Woo in the eye. During dinner, Jun-woo tells Woo that Hoon is looking for an actress for his film. Woo suggests Seo, and that Jun-woo admit that she would be perfect for the role. Meanwhile, Seo incorrectly overhears the conversation and comes under the impression that she's Jun-woo's ideal girl. Later, when Jun-woo messages her, she says yes without hearing him out. Sadly, she soon finds out that he was actually looking for a female actor with long hair to play the role of a ghost, much to her dismay. Later on the set, she meets Hoon and immediately falls for him too. When she proceeds to leave, she learns that her bag, which contained her mobile phone and clothes, has gone missing. Jun-woo promises to help her and asks her to rest in the waiting room. However, she ends up falling asleep and gets left behind in the shooting location. Elsewhere, Woo accidentally breaks a rare edition doll of Ju-yi's favorite K-pop idol, Han Jung-woo. She is heartbroken and unable to work the next day. When Seo finally returns home, she explains to Woo how much she likes Jung-woo. Later that evening, Woo notices that one of his customers looks awfully similar to Jung-woo. Lo and behold, when the customer takes off his mask, it's confirmed that it's Jung-woo himself. Woo immediately rushes upstairs to inform Ju-yi, and when the latter comes down and looks at her idol, she passes out in excitement. Woo finds it strange, but Seo explains that they have studied in a sex-segregated school all their life, and they don't know how to act around guys. After learning this, Woo becomes sympathetic towards Ju-yi and decides to help her. He organizes a week-long training program that will help her interact with Jung-woo when he visits the town next week for shooting. In the first phase, he teaches her how to maintain eye contact with guys. On the second day, Ju-yi learns how to talk to guys she doesn't know personally. She also practices how she would interact with Han Jung-woo. During the process, she begins to get comfortable around Woo and can easily hold eye contact with him. On D-Day, Ju-yi successfully talks with her idol Jung-woo and takes a selfie with him. When she asks him about his shooting, he reveals that he has already finished filming, and it's Woo who had requested him to come to the cafe one more time for her. This changes Ju-yi's perception of Woo drastically, and she starts liking him. Meanwhile, Hoon decides to change his goal and become an actor. During one of his auditions, he asks Seo to come along with him. Seo thinks that he's interested in her and gets extremely excited. However, when they are about to leave, Jun-woo reminds her that she can't leave because it's her turn to vacuum the home. She tries to get out of doing it, but Jun-woo refuses to listen. As a result, Hoon leaves for the audition by himself. Seo tries to cozy up with Hoon after he returns from the audition, but Jun-woo again rains on her parade. Fed up, she confronts Junwoo separately and calls him out for ruining her romantic moment with Hoon. Surprised, Junwoo tells her that she's living in a delusion and that she isn't the type of girl that Hoon likes. Seo gets upset with Junwoo for his bluntness and takes revenge by pulling small pranks on him. However, she fails to make him angry. One night, Junwoo accidentally drops his custom-made special toothbrush in the laundry basket. Later, when Seo visits the bathroom, she notices the toothbrush and mistakes it for a discarded one. For the next 3 days, she uses the toothbrush to exfoliate her feet. One day, Junwoo catches her in the act and panics. It turns out Junwoo is very particular about his oral hygiene. He loses his temper, and it takes him 3 days to calm down. Over time, Ju-yi gets closer to Woo, and it's revealed that he has a brother who studies abroad. Woo's mother also wanted to send him abroad, but he didn't leave because he can't speak English, and a lot of memories of his late father are attached to the place. Soon, Hoon again changes his goal and decides to become a DJ. He becomes part of his college club and invites everyone to a party there. Ju-yi is not interested in the party, but Seo convinces her to come along. The girls get dolled up, and Woo is mesmerized by Ju-yi's beauty. It's also revealed that Junwoo doesn't drink. However, he accidentally drinks Seo's drink. After getting drunk, he starts cleaning at the club and gets kicked out. Fortunately, Seo notices him and follows him outside. Meanwhile, Ju-yi and Woo connect and dance together until Hoon's sister, Ma Hoo-young, shows up. Hoo-young and her American friend Tommy ask them to dance. When Ju-yi declines, Hoo-young calls her a drag and leaves with Tommy and Woo. Ju-yi takes it to heart and shows up on the dance floor drunk when Hoon starts DJing. She somehow manages to impress everyone with her drunk robotic dance. Eventually, she gets tired, and Woo carries her back home. The next day, Ju-yi gets up to find Woo by her side. When he leans in to kiss her, she wakes up and realizes she was dreaming, much to her embarrassment. Later, Hoo-young shows up at the shared house and reveals that she's moving into the spare room. It quickly becomes clear that Hoo-young likes Woo, and she starts flirting with him. This makes Ju-yi jealous, as she has also started to fancy Woo. She seeks Seo's advice without letting her know she likes Woo, but Seo figures it out on her own. Seo tells her that she needs to appeal to Woo and spend more time together so that he becomes closer to her than he is with Hoo-young. Meanwhile, Hoon again changes his goal and decides to become a photographer. He announces that he wants to take pictures of their cafe to promote it on social media. He puts forth the couple on a picnic concept for the shoot. To put his plan in motion, he asks Woo and Ju-yi to be the models. Ju-yi initially refuses, but when Hoo-young comes forward to volunteer, she is forced to take on the role. With both wanting to compete, Hoon decides to choose the model in a fair manner. He will observe the girls all day and choose the model that fits the role. Meanwhile, Junwoo starts bleeding from his nose, and Woo reveals that he always bleeds when he stays up all night. It's revealed that he has taken up a lot of part-time jobs because he pays his own bills and tuition, which surprises Seo. Later, Ju-yi ultimately wins the competition, and soon she starts shooting with Woo. During the shoot, they get very close because of their poses. On Seo's suggestion, Ju-yi decides to ask Woo out for a movie. However, it's difficult for her as she doesn't have any experience in it. Meanwhile, Junwoo is forced to quit school because of his work. Hoon advises him against it, but the latter insists that at this point in his life, money is more important than his dreams. Meanwhile, Seo overhears his conversation with Hoon before heading out. Shortly afterwards, Junwoo writes on the shared house group chat if any of the girls is free to help him with a part-time modeling job. Seo initially ignores the message, but ultimately decides to help Junwoo out. Meanwhile, Woo finds Ju-yi's favorite Han Jung-woo figure on sale on an international website. Since he can't read English, he seeks Hoo-young's help in placing the order. Just when Ju-yi gathers the courage to ask him, she sees Woo and Hoo-young in his room and assumes the worst. However, when Hoo-young tries to get romantic with Woo, he shuts her down and makes it clear that he doesn't like her romantically. At the shoot, Junwoo and Seo have a blast and they become more comfortable around each other. Later, when Junwoo tries to pay her, she refuses to take the money and tells him to use it for his school fee. This surprises him, and he reveals that he's not quitting school. It turns out, Seo misunderstood the situation. Nevertheless, Seo's selfless nature surprises Junwoo, and he treats her to some delicious food. That night, Ju-yi learns that she and Seo have been taken off the waitlist for their room at the university's dorm, and they must move in next month. Thinking that she doesn't have a chance with Woo, she decides to move out. This upsets Woo, and Junwoo advises him to express his feelings to Ju-yi. It turns out that Junwoo knew all along that his friend liked Ju-yi. Meanwhile, seeing her friend upset, Seo decides to teach Woo a lesson by giving bad dating advice. However, Seo later discovers that Woo isn't into Hoo-young. By the time she figures out that he likes Ju-yi, it's too late, and he tries to impress Ju-yi following Seo's ill-intentioned advice. Fortunately, he manages to save himself by presenting her with the Han Jung-woo figure. Ju-yi is surprised by the gesture, and when she asks him about his date with Hu-young, he clarifies everything and tells her that he only likes her. Hearing this, Ju-yi also expresses her feelings towards Woo. The movie ends as the girls ultimately decide to stay in the shared house.